ThatGreatBusinessShow.com is brought to you by De Facto Shaving Oil, the best anyone can get. Made in Ireland, sold worldwide.
Welcome to ThatGreatBusinessShow.com, episode 16, the first broadcast on the 8th of January 2021. I am Conor O'Toole. First of all, a massive thank you to the 4,000 and more of you who have clicked on our LinkedIn page just for the Tony Smurfett and Conor McEnroe interviews. They are episodes 14 and 15 that we ran over Christmas. The feedback has been phenomenal and the listening figures are, as a former president of the US would say, huge. This week, we bring you one of Ireland's best-known business examiners who walks us through the examinership process. Then we have, via Zoom, for reasons COVID, a Galway-based business that has its eye on the 80 million people who suffer from the little-known skin disease hidradenitis suppurativa, fortunately for me, commonly known as HS. Then we have our two young fellas who met in a university bar and ended up creating a successful payments system unlike any other, already selling in Ireland, UK, USA and Canada. And finally, we talked to Sharon Keegan of Peachy Lean about running a small business when horrendous tragedy strikes. Usually at this time, I would introduce you to my co-host, my sidekick, my better half, Jamie Heaslip. But Jamie cannot make it again for reasons COVID, so he joins us on the line via Zoom. You know us on That Great Business Show. We accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative, particularly when it comes to business. But we also keep it real. We know that there's a whole heap of doo-doo about to hit the fan. Many businesses will go to the wall. And unfortunately, well, as they say, that's business. And just one of the many options that a business may go for is examinership. And today we have the chief examiner himself. That is Neil Hughes. He is the managing partner with Baker Tilly. He's in studio with me. Neil, you're very welcome to That Great Business Show.
Thanks, Conor. Delighted to be here.
Let's start from A to Z with examinership because you love it. You obviously make a living out of it, but it is what I've read is it's pretty positive as can be for the business owner.
Yes, well, it's the corporate rescue process. It's Ireland's formal corporate rescue process. So it's designed to save viable enterprises from closure and thereby save the jobs of the employees. And that's what it's all about, Conor, actually, is trying to save as many livelihoods in the state as possible. And Examinership has been responsible for saving over 15,000 jobs in SME businesses over the past 10 years as an index that we keep in Baker Tilly, just keeping track of what's happening in the marketplace. Introduced in 1990. Don't know if you remember back in the day when the Goodman Group was about to go under because of when Iraq invaded Kuwait. The Gulf War kicked off and the legislation was rushed through the Dáil at that stage. I was actually fortunate enough to interview Des O'Malley, who was the Minister for Industry and Commerce at the time, who introduced the legislation. Fascinating to talk to him about the phone call he took from Charles Hoggy when he was on his holidays in Connemara to say that
Desi, we have a problem.
We have a problem. Thousands upon thousands of men are about to lose their jobs and rushed back from Connemara just to bring the legislation in. But since then, it's been used thousands of times in order to try and save good businesses, which could otherwise, other than the fact that they're facing a crisis at the minute, which obviously there are thousands of businesses in that boat right now because of COVID, but otherwise those businesses might fail. But examinership is there to protect them.
So how does it work?
Well, typically what happens is a business will understand and realise that they've got a mountain to climb. And there's a huge amount of businesses out there right now, Conor, who it looks like Mount Everest for them, when the subsidies are
I'm going to ask you an impossible question. Put a number on that. You say thousands. 10,000? There are 250,000 SMEs.
I would say it's tens of thousands of businesses, because you take anybody that's related to hospitality at the minute is facing a crisis, probably, sort of a once in a career type crisis that they are facing. That they have to shutter their business for so long and then try and reopen it, crank the business back up again by getting the team back together, getting stock back on the shelves, motivating everybody to keep it going. One of the big problems actually is keeping the team together because some people are drifting away from hospitality. I don't know if you've seen some of the interviews that are going on within hospitality, but people have to make a living. And if they can't make a living being, say, a chef or being involved in being a waiter or waitress, whatever, they will turn to something else because they've got...
It's funny, Neil, it's funny you say that, because we have, I'm lucky to be kind of a bit of a passive investor in two pubs, and we're finding it hard to keep our staff right now, particularly when we're shuttered down to, we only have one premise open and we're shuttered down. What are you seeing? What are the obvious challenges facing SMEs, and what are not quick fixes, but what are some of the things that you first look at to do to help them?
Well, I tell you, the very first thing that we do, if we're talking, for example, about an examinership process or some sort of a restructuring process, but when people come into me, the very first thing I say to them is, let's talk about everything positive that you can think about in relation to your business. Don't tell me about all the problems. Don't tell me about the creditors list. Don't tell me about the problem with the revenue or the landlord or whatever. Talk to me now about all of the positive things that made you go into business in the first place. Because we are going to have to recapture that enthusiasm. We're going to have to rekindle that, because that is going to become the platform upon which we are going to build the future of the business. So the key thing, a lot of people are punch drunk at the minute, guys. That's really what we're seeing. People just cannot believe what has happened in the last 9 months. So what we need to do is we need to try and, make sure they can see the wood for the trees and try and say, well, what are the good things about this business? And start talking about them. And then you get the enthusiasm back in relation to the business. And that can be, Jamie, like what you just said there, some of the ability of the team or the expertise that has been built up over a few years within the team, whereby they are, the business is humming when that team is on form. And that kind of, running a high performance team, something you'd know well about, Jamie, obviously know a lot about. But that is critical to a lot of businesses. That's how businesses oftentimes make the profit. That's where they get their last bit of profit. Because if a team is running at 70, 80%, that's break even at best. You need your team running at 90% or 100%. The efficiencies that can pump out in an SME business. So trying to, protect that and capture that, really important. When a business is shuttered, very difficult. Obviously, the subsidies, Jamie, are helping, whereby you can, with an EWSS, you can offer the employees something maybe to try and keep the team together. But it is one of the big challenges, certainly in hospitality. It's going to be one of the bigger challenges, is to make sure that there is the core team there when the business is ready to kick off again. Hopefully, ASAP, but maybe springtime sometime the businesses can kick off again.
So owner comes in and gives you what you want, which is all the optimistic stuff, and then you have to kick him around the place or her around the place and say, and here are the problems. Yeah,
and here's some of the solutions, because we like to be thinking in terms of our solution oriented. I mean, what we try and do is we try and say, here are the different options for you to keep going. There's a lot of advice you will get in Ireland, unfortunately. 15 different reasons why you should wind the damn thing up. This would be typically, if you go into a liquidator and ask for a solution, the solution is going to be liquidation. So, we look at things differently. We're trying to say, okay, how can we keep this business going? What do we have to do? So the businesses can try and trade through it if there isn't that much in the way of liabilities. But if there's been a build-up of liabilities over the course of the last 9 or 12 months, be that either revenue or landlord arrears or whatever, and if now, as soon as a business is opened up again, say in 2021, and everybody comes in with their hand out, if that is a scenario that is facing a business, well, then sometimes a formal restructuring, like appointing an examiner, is the way to get out of that. And the way to do that, examinership is up to 100 days of protection. It's a framework upon which you can try and build that restructuring plan, a scheme of arrangement. The 100 days actually has been extended to a possible 150 days because of COVID. That was brought in last year by the government, just to give businesses a bit of extra time if they need to restructure. And essentially what happens is, you need to try and refinance the business to try and pay off those liabilities by way of a compromise. So whereby you're balancing all of those claims and trying to come up with some fair compromise. Typically, creditors don't get paid in full. But in my experience, and I've been through hundreds of these creditors meetings, you will be amazed at the goodwill you will get back if you are honest and transparent with some of the people that are owed money, some of those key stakeholders. And people are actually really surprised. Sometimes I found business owners get very emotional about that. They're just not aware of the goodwill that exists out there. Do you know what I mean? There's any number of business owners I've found, they find it quite difficult emotionally to handle it. You find them in tears just when they understand the level of goodwill that exists for them out there. It's almost like you'd see in a in a funeral type situation. It's a similar sort of dynamic. But in any event, that's what we're all about. We try and put together schemes of arrangement to try and ensure the business is back solvent again and back, looking forward positively with a view to never looking back.
And during those 100 days or 150, what exactly are you doing? Are you making the phone calls to say, hiya, it's Neil Hughes here. Jack, we have a problem. You're old X and you're not going to get X.
Yeah, we tend to take over the problems of the company. The idea is that in examinership, it's a process where the directors stay in control. They stay running the company. So we don't get involved in running the business. They know that best. Our job as an examiner, is to go in, look at all the liabilities and take over that side of it and put a scheme together for the liabilities. So we deal with all those problem issues that are there. And that allows the entrepreneur or the directors to get back to what they know best, what they're best at, which is running the business and trying to ensure that it's, emerging from the crisis, that it's going to be trading profitably. So the examiner does, I suppose, what it says on the tin. The examiner's there to examine all of the different liabilities that are there, examine the business, examine the problems that are there with a view to coming up with a scheme. And the idea is then that a court would make that binding. So it becomes binding then all of the creditors. So even if there are some creditors who are, also to use the expression, holdouts, where they're trying to hold the process to ransom, they're not able to do that because it becomes binding on everybody, assuming that it's supported by the majority.
How big is the majority that you need?
Just greater than 50%. I mean, there are various classes of different creditors. Some are preferential creditors like rates and revenue and employee claims and so on. Then there are unsecured creditors. There are leasing creditors probably in a lot of businesses. So there's different classes, but what you need is at least 50% in one class. The bar is quite low in order to bring it back to court with a view to getting it approved. And typically a judge is going to look and say, right, how many jobs are at stake here? How many livelihoods are at stake in the midst of this crisis we're in? And, I think that the trick really here is to try and make this a very easy, compelling story for a judge and say, look, Judge, what we want to do is we want to save this business because really what this is about is the livelihoods of everybody working here. Do you know what I mean? Like the shareholder value at this stage is gone. Do you know what I mean? The shareholder value is very, very limited if it's there at all in a crisis like we're in right now. So if you focus on the employees, focus on the people who, normally don't have a voice in situations like this. You know what I mean? Oh, and you see when those voices are ignored, that's when you see the controversy. You can see some of the large retail liquidations, for example, that have taken place. When people's voices are ignored, that's when things get very, very difficult, as we've seen in some of those cases. But so if you focus on those people, it tends to work out, in my experience. If that's where the focus is, you say, look, I'm here, I'm trying to save some jobs here. You'll be amazed at the bounce of the ball you'll get in terms of suppliers, in terms of a judge looking at it and so on.
You used a nice term there, the holdouts. I'd call them bolshi or maybe realists or people who just feel either the other side has legged them or just they're feeling sore themselves because they're under pressure.
That's a lot of it, yeah.
And how do you handle them?
Well, I mean, you have to recognise and respect where people are coming from. They may well be under massive pressure themselves. And they're fighting their corner to try and get what's owing to them. In my experience, you go to a creditors meeting, okay? These are being held actually virtually now, okay? They'll be on Zoom or whatever. But if you go to a creditors meeting and if you get a lot of support from creditors, you know then that the directors that you're dealing with are people of integrity. They weren't messers, do you know what I mean? And that's why that goodwill is coming back to them. And so if you go into a creditors meeting and you get a lot of people there who are very vocal, I tend to get in the neck because the directors are not there. We specifically ask them not to be there. It's a private meeting of the creditors. But then you start to worry and you say, were there people here deliberately misled? You know what I mean? And you get a very good flavour then of what's happening. So we get to see it all. It's a bit of a roller coaster, Conal, some of those meetings. Do you know what I mean? I suppose I'm used to them now, but when I was a younger man a few years ago, they can be a good bit of rock and roll, I can tell you, at some of those meetings. But the idea really is, again, focus on what are we trying to achieve? We're trying to save jobs. Do you know what I mean? There's a hell of a lot of people are losing their jobs right now. So if we, in what we do in Baker Tilly, if we can play our small part in trying to protect viable businesses that otherwise will go to the wall, that's very, very satisfying. And I have to say, I love what I do in terms of the saving of jobs. And there are other people who will focus on literally just winding companies up. It's very easy to knock a company over, but it's a bit more challenging. Try and keep it together and try and make sure it's profitable going forward.
I've always wanted to know about who gets paid. I mean, you have a job to do and you get paid. And where do you rank out of the pot of £1,000? Yeah. Do you take 1,001 or what's left?
So, yeah, I mean, the Examiner does rank ahead of all other creditors, which is...
And isn't there a question, therefore, of dragging out the process because you are on hours? It's commonly thrown at you. You're charging at 1,000 an hour and you're getting some young lad at 50 quid an hour doing the business.
Yeah, it doesn't really, in practical terms, I can see where you, in theory, like that's a...
You've heard it before.
Could be an attractive argument. But
the same as all solicitors and accountants.
Exactly, yeah. Just keep coining it. When you're trying to save a business, or you're trying to rescue a business from closing down, it can be fragile. And, business can be fickle sometimes. So if you have an opportunity, if you see a gap in the fence that you can go and say, right, we're going to rescue this business, you move pretty quickly towards the gates, I can tell you. So it doesn't really arise in practice. I can see why you could suggest that, right? But in practice, that's not how it works. But the Examiner, no. And look, to be honest, examiners wouldn't take on the job if they weren't going to get paid. So they do enjoy that kind of super preferential status amongst creditors, which maybe is one of the reasons why sometimes secured creditors like banks would not be the biggest fans of examinership processes because the Examiner ranks ahead of the bank's charge.
Interesting. So do you have arm wrestles with the banks over this?
Typically, no. I mean, really, if you're at loggerheads with a secured creditor, those are very rare cases, very unusual cases. It is possible to still get a scheme across the line, even if the secured creditor is against it. It's very, very rare. So typically we would work hand in hand with the bank, and especially some of the pillar banks. In fairness to them, they have taken a long-term view in relation to a lot of these cases, and particularly these sort of Irish-based pillar banks. They've been very supportive in a lot of the cases we've been in, which we've appreciated. So that's not really the issue now. The issue facing a lot of businesses currently is where loans have been sold. Some of the loans that have been sold off maybe 5-6 years ago to some of the smaller private equity funds and so on. That's more of a challenge. And by the way, I can see that being a big feature of 2021. We've seen some examples of it in 2020. It's going to be even more so in 2021 when they're looking for their money back.
What have you seen so far with that? I mean, are we talking about they are called vultures? Are they acting like vultures?
Yeah, well, I mean, not so much. I'm not a huge fan of the term vulture funds, but some of these venture capital private equity funds, it's a matter of public record. Like the Cara Pharmacies examinership, for example, was triggered by the secured lender there, which is a private equity fund, Joe.ie, similar process from Maximum Media. So there are examples there whereby those types of funds are moving. I think it's going to be a big feature of 2021 because there was a huge amount of loans sold off, as you know. And the owners of those loans, they've got a different horizon than the pillar banks. And that's something that business owners and anybody listening to this podcast, for example, they might need to have a think about that and just need to say, okay, well, what is the motivation of my lender? And being with a PE fund, not the same as being with Bank of Ireland or AIB.
And is it easy to know who owns your fund? Oh, sorry, your loan.
Not always, but you're entitled to ask. There's a huge amount of confusion about that, by the way, especially because some of the owners of the loans then employ managers, a manager like Pepper, for example. And people then assume that they're dealing with Pepper, but they may not actually be a borrower now of Pepper because you could have Goldman Sachs behind that. So it's important people ask the questions, though, because they have to know what questions to ask, obviously, okay, and the way things have run in the last few years has been pretty complicated. But you are entitled to know exactly who your lender now is. You don't have a choice, unfortunately, I think it's been tested now a few times in the courts. You don't have a choice if your lender decides to sell your loan. But no, you're absolutely entitled to know what it is, and you should find out if you can possibly get to the right person. You should be asking those questions.
We want to solve the problem, if we can, for anybody listening. What are the first steps? Anybody in business who's concerned. Everybody in business must be concerned. What should they be doing?
They should take advice is the very first thing they should do, because it's a pressure cooker environment for somebody. In my experience, sometimes guys particularly, ladies tend to be a bit better at this, about reaching out in terms of if they have an issue. But guys sometimes can internalize things. We can be brutal at this when it comes to this sometimes, you know what I mean? And it's very important that you reach out. I think it is kind of an Irish thing as well, that there is a sort of I wouldn't say a shame factor, but there is a certain privacy that Irish people have, which is not the same in America, for example. So if you look at the statistics, only 2% of businesses that become insolvent in Ireland go through a formal restructuring, like Examinership. In the US, it's 27%. Over 10 times the amount of businesses. And that's because there's a more open business culture in the US. In Ireland, it's a much more private type culture. And I personally think we could do far better as an economy if we were to open up a bit in relation to how we are running our businesses. So that's the first thing people should do. They should reach out and say, okay, look, these are the issues. What kind of things, what kind of options do I have? And that's when these conversations we're having now, that's when the examinership option will be there, along with other informal type, payment plans you could enter into with creditors. Sometimes it's not as serious that it needs a formal restructuring. But then going through that and understanding what that 100 days looks like, understanding how you might come out the far end and never look back. That's the information that a business owner needs, I think, to get through 2021 if they're under pressure.
Jamie, have you got a final question?
I've just been sitting back listening here to the great voice. The great voice of Neil, because you can tell, Neil, you've been doing some really good stuff on radio, but it fascinates me that you say that we're not as open as the US. Even our bankruptcy laws are tougher than the UK.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a thing. Do you see that as a factor that plays into it?
It's an historic thing. Yeah, Jamie, you're right.
Yeah.
The history of ourselves with 12-year bankruptcy, this sort of Victorian type legislation that we were running up until, 3-4 years ago? Has created this culture in Ireland whereby, it dare not speak its name if you are in trouble with it from a business perspective. Whereas in the US, it's almost worn as a badge of honour that you go through a restructuring, not once, but maybe twice or 3 times. So I think it just would be, look, put it this way. If we look at the number of businesses that have gone into liquidation in recent years, if we look at the number of jobs that have been lost, and if we ask ourselves, was it only 2% of those could have been saved? That the other 98% of them were terminally insolvent and were totally doomed? I mean, I just don't accept that as a proposition, you know what I mean? So I think if we could talk more, and that's why I'm delighted actually, Conor, thank you for asking me just to share some of our experience in this.
We're delighted to have you.
But if we could get that message out there that, you know what, there are other options out there. You may well be able to turn this around if you just recapture that enthusiasm that you had when you kicked off on day one. Well, then maybe there is another way out of this.
And there are other examiners, but the chief examiner, I've just dubbed you, is Neil Hughes, and he is the managing partner with Baker Tilly. And Neil, thank you so much for joining us on That Great Business Show.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
It's all go, like Cursey Gno, on thatgreatbusinessshow.com.
That Great Business Show is brought to you by defactoshave.com. Without them, we could not have That Great Business Show. We ask you to support them, therefore.
That Great Business Show.
Just when you thought you had enough of COVID, along comes Hydradentitis Suppurativa, or HS. I'm delighted it's called HS. Well, actually, that is a skin condition that's been around forever, but it's only now getting worldwide attention and recognition. One-time baker Suzanne Moloney is founder of Galway-based Hydramed Solutions, and she has a raft of solutions for it. She is probably a world leader, truth be told, and Suzanne Moloney joins us on That Great Business Show now on a Zoom call. Suzanne, what is HS?
Hi, Conor and Jamie. So HS, or hidradenitis suppurativa, is a disease of the skin that causes lesions to form in areas like the armpit, the buttocks, the thigh and the groin. And these lesions resemble often boils or abscesses, and sometimes they form open wounds, and they drain continuously. They're very painful and they are chronic, so they're very slow to heal or non-healing.
You were a baker. How did you learn about HS?
Yeah, I was originally trained as a chef and opened my own bakery in 2013. I learned about HS because I have it, and I had a very long journey to diagnosis. I first started having symptoms when I was a young teenager, and wasn't diagnosed until my early 20s. So that's my experience. I have lifelong experience of managing the disease and dealing with all the nasties that come along with it.
And you have made now a big pivot, and you have made a business out of HS.
Yeah, absolutely. So Actually, as working as a chef, I used my arms a lot, and I was very badly affected in my armpits. I found it really difficult to keep dressings on my armpits in work in particular. And we always wore white jackets as well. So I'd always be very nervous about having a leak or draining onto my jackets as well. And one night I was at a party actually and shaking someone's hand, and my dressing fell off my armpit and onto the floor. And it was just kind of a big turning point for me, because I'd had this idea to create a solution for armpit dressings, and that was the final straw. So I set about trying to create something from my ideas. It's a very long road to getting there, but we're finally there now, and we are on the market for 1 year so far.
And how's the year gone, Suzanne? How's your year gone?
Yeah, it's been challenging enough. Now I have to say, because we had we launched in Europe with kind of a minimal marketing effort to begin with, and I suppose that was because we didn't have a lot of social proof of the product, and people with this disease can be very easily, or not easily, but they can be exploited by other companies. So we weren't sure of the exact approach to take, because we don't want to be seen to be exploiting people, I suppose, by selling something that doesn't work. We knew it worked, but we didn't have testimonials from other people using the product, because the way things worked was we got our regulatory approvals, which meant that we could start selling in Europe, and we started selling and sending out samples to people. So it was a slow start. We were just getting some good momentum. We were able to start shipping into America then, because we had our registration with the FDA complete at the end of February. And we were starting to see our sales grow. And then I suppose the pandemic came along, and everything just slowed down quite abruptly for a few months. And we had to, we were meant to be doing a lot of travel around the States. We were meant to be attending a lot of conferences and visiting patient groups in the US. So that was all cancelled. So we had to kind of adapt our marketing strategy to a very, very online-based strategy. And that took us a bit of time, but we're back on track now, thankfully, and it's going good. It was definitely a very challenging year, but my team are fantastic, and I suppose I have to just say that and acknowledge them on this show, that I'm in awe of them. And every day we have a meeting, and just we're always making little milestones every day, and that leads into bigger ones. So it's going good. And we've just launched our second product, actually, which is a male version of the original product, which was just for women. And that's going well as well. So, yeah.
And are these the boxers that you're making?
The boxers are in the final phases of validation and verification testing. So that once we have them, because these are technically medical devices, we have to jump through a lot of regulatory hoops to make sure that they're safe to use, and that, that they comply with all the standards in each country that we're going to be selling into. So we're nearly there with that. So we're aiming to launch them hopefully in March or April this year.
And what would a pair of men's boxers that get around HS, what do they do differently than your ordinary pair of jocks? Yeah,
so well, first of all, I suppose they facilitate the placement of a dressing in these areas. It's very difficult to keep a wound dressing in a part of the body that's mobile, moist, sometimes hairy, and moving. Or sorry, I said mobile. But it's a difficult area to dress. Traditional dressings are developed for kind of flat or curved areas of the body, like an arm or a leg, where when you have a curved surface that moves, it's really hard to keep it in place. So our product has perforations throughout the material that allows the placement of a dressing and then the retention of the dressing on the other side of the garment using a little fastener. So there's no adhesives attaching to the skin, and it keeps it really securely in place through the perforation, so it doesn't move, doesn't fall off.
This has the potential of being a very, very large business, because I think you told me, is it 1% of the world's population has HS? That would suggest 80 million people?
Yeah. I suppose it depends. It's definitely an emerging area of research for researchers and doctors, and the consensus is in around 1%. There is some evidence that the prevalence rate is lower, and there's some evidence that it's a lot higher, but it's just very misdiagnosed. So the general feeling is around 1%.
Which is a massive market opportunity. I would have thought some of the big names in this area in medical devices would have got into it.
Yeah, you would think that. And unfortunately, no, they haven't. And I suppose a lot of clinicians actually recommend using products like sanitary towels and adult nappies to manage these wounds, because there aren't that many effective products available, which is just, it's not right when you're trying to manage a disease that is a lifelong illness to be proposing products that are made for something else, instead of just trying to develop a solution specifically for this group of people. And that just frustrated me no end. So that is why that's why I started Hidrawear. It was just something that I feel very passionately about. My disease has inconvenienced me and knocked me out for a few months after surgeries and things like that. But when I started speaking to other people with HS and realised how big the problem actually was and how much people are suffering, I just couldn't stop, really. I'm obsessed now.
And you are obviously going, once COVID is gone, you're going to go huge, I hope. How are you being funded? Yeah,
we started off just with some innovation vouchers through Enterprise Ireland and various. The first year was a lot of fundraising through different grants and competitions. So we won in 2018. We won C-Corn Award. We won. We were successful with our competitive start fund. We got some money from EIT Health, which is a European initiative. So we did quite well in grants and competitive pitching, I suppose, in 2018. In 2019, we started fundraising for a seed round of 1.25 million that we closed in 2 tranches towards the end of 2019 and very early in 2020. So we're funded. We're spending. We're being very careful with our money as well, and we'll most likely be going for funding again for a Series A in 2021.
And so therefore you have a vision, and you can share the vision with us because it's the same one you're presumably going to use on a pitch. How big a market do you think you now, as in Hidrawear, can address? And what's the big the path you're now on?
So when we look at the countries that we're targeting, the target market that we are, I suppose, going after is the potential is over €1 billion in Europe, the US, and the UK, Australia, New Zealand. But I suppose I don't know how to answer that specifically because we know we're not going to be able to hit that number.
Suzanne, what does, in a year's time, or 5 years' time, what does success look like?
Success in a year's time will be us rolling out our reimbursement strategy in the UK, Ireland, and a few select countries in Europe and the USA. It's a really hard and it's a really, I suppose, difficult landscape to navigate because there's different criteria in each country. So we're starting that with hopefully Ireland and the Netherlands this year, and the UK and the US towards the end of next year. So we have a lot of groundwork done for reimbursement in various countries. And that means that the product will be available to people through healthcare systems or through insurance. We're currently selling direct to consumer only. So achieving reimbursement in these countries will make the product a lot more accessible to people, and hopefully raise a lot more awareness of the disease as well among clinicians and among the public, because we'll be promoting it very heavily. We'll have some education modules being developed this year. And a lot of patient-facing infographics and information as well.
Many times, Suzanne, when people go into business, into different markets, it's because their aunt, uncle, or somebody they met on holidays happens to be there. Curious, why Netherlands?
They have a very good health system, and they already reimburse a lot of wound dressing products. And they have an excellent HS patient group that are very strong advocates for patients in the Netherlands. So we have been in touch with some distributors. We've got a distribution agreement going into practice this year. And yeah, it's a good place to start as well. We already know that there's very good patient care for people with HS.
And your experience of doing business with the Dutch?
Very limited so far. We haven't really, apart from my own personal visits to the Netherlands. They're very the people that we're dealing with in the Netherlands are lovely. They're very keen to see us succeed in the Netherlands.
You're based in Galway. Is that where the R&D is done, and where is your manufacturing being done?
Yeah, a lot of our R&D happens between us and actually our Danish. We manufacture in Denmark. So we have a very collaborative team in Galway and in Denmark that kind of both parties work on different pieces of the project. Our manufacturers are Danish, and part of the product comes from China as well.
So worldwide. Jamie, I'll leave the last word with you.
No, I'm blown away. What's next? What other product lines are you looking at?
So we have got some really nice IP around our product, and my goal and my vision is to create this range of products for people with HS. But we know that there is application for use outside of HS for people who have survived breast cancer, for post-surgical wounds, for burns. There's all sorts of applications for use for this product, and we look forward to exploring that. But my focus at the moment is just catering to this community of patients who've been overlooked significantly by wound care, and trying to just make as much of an impact there as we can before we start, I suppose, extending beyond HS.
And if somebody wants to support you financially, because you are going to be funding, and or can open markets for you, where will they find you? They'll
find me at Hidrawear, all across social media. It's just at Hidrawear, HIDRAWEAR. Or you can get me at Suzanne M at hidrawear.com. And you can, it's quite easy to find us or to contact us. So absolutely get in touch. Love to hear from everyone. And I just like to take the opportunity to say, if anyone, there is most likely 1 in 100 people affected by this disease. So it's very likely that you know someone with it, and maybe they don't realize they have it, or maybe they are too embarrassed to talk about it because it is a very embarrassing disease to live with, but it shouldn't be. And we're trying to normalize it and to kind of make it as socially acceptable to have this as it is to have psoriasis, and to make it a bit more mainstream.
Okay, Suzanne. That is Suzanne Moloney of Hidrawear, as she said. And thank you so much for joining us on That Great Business Show.
Thank you for having me.
Subscribe today to That Great Business Show on your favourite podcast platform, including Apple and Spotify.
Two lads meet in a college bar and they have a chat. Nothing remarkable about that. But remarkably, they both have one great idea. And just after college, they continue to develop that idea. And from this has emerged a business called Loylap, and is a market-ready payments app that has customers already in Ireland, UK, USA, Canada, and Germany. And Patrick Garry is one of the co-founders of Loylap, and he joins me in studio now. You may as well tell the world, Patrick, what is Loylap, and tell me why you really don't want big customers.
Sure. Well, Loylap is a payments technology company for SMEs. So we essentially take a couple of disparate payment technologies and bring them all together into one platform. So if you take, for example, gift card technology, so buying and selling gift cards in store, but also online, in-store application payments where consumers can link a debit card or credit card to a mobile wallet, and then to get extra loyalty rewards for doing so and to pay in store using that wallet, thus actually giving the business the payment before the client needs it. So you load funds to that account and then debit with each successive purchase in store. And also online purchases as well is where we focused for the last 2 years. So ordering online with a focus on cafes, QSRs and restaurants. So not ordering online like a Shopify platform, buying candles that might be delivered in 3 or 4 days. That's a market that we're developing into. But at the moment, the focus is on cafes, QSRs and restaurants for COVID in terms of how they can order a product that might be delivered or collected in 3 or 4 hours. So,
Jamie, I'm old school. I like crinkly cash. You know all about this stuff. Chat away to this lad about this stuff.
Well, straight away, I kind of think, Patrick, are you in competition to another Irish company people might know of as Stripe?
No, we wouldn't think of ourselves in competition to Stripe. So like Stripe's vision, as far as I can see and read from what the Collisons talk about, is to democratize the internet in terms of how payments are taken online. So they had the idea of how could you make it really easy to take payments online so that Jamie could set up a soup store and start selling his soup online and get that done incredibly quickly without needing to set up complex payment gateways. So our company specializes in those complex payment gateways. So we work with physical presence retailers to bring together several aspects of primarily in-store payments. And we link the payment gateway to their actual point of sale is one of the primary USPs. So what we saw was that if you were running a cafe, you don't want to be seeing, okay, I took 2,000 euros via the POS. I did 500 euros there on the Stripe account for that yoke. I sold 1,000 euros here in gift cards with this service, and I did X amount of orders and online orders here. That's taken all the data and mixed it up into 4 different platforms, which is now unmanageable. We saw that the market was to bring together several of these payment services into one platform to let you manage your entire business through us so that we could then tell you who all of your customers are, who's spending the most money. And one of the primary advantages is it's all linked into your point of sale devices. So we know what products are being purchased. So now you can start to market to your customers in applications congruent on the products that they've previously purchased. So if customer has bought a hot chocolate in the last month, then target them with this new variant of hot chocolate that you've developed that people who've previously bought a hot chocolate will have a higher propensity to purchase. So no, not competition with Stripe. Like we hook Stripe into our platform. Merchants can elect to have Stripe as their online payment method, but our focus is on the physical presence businesses. Our focus is on the real world and how can we make payments easier for real world businesses because they want less hassle and they want to just focus on what their product is. If they're selling fish and chips or if they're selling coffee or if they're selling sandwiches or candles or whatever it is, they don't want to have to focus on what complex convergence of several payment methods and managing the money across their different systems.
But if you're not in competition with Stripe, there must be another 10, 100, 1,000 other companies doing something very similar to you. What are you doing differently?
Yeah, exactly. There's hundreds of companies in each of the verticals. So if you look at the main areas in which we specialize, gift cards, hundreds of companies that do gift cards, loyalty, thousands of different companies doing loyalty, online ordering, and so on. The problem that we were solving was complicated convergence of those. So bringing all of those products together into one platform that you could offer to merchants and make the choice easier for them in terms of how they can then add additional functionality onto the platform. So it was a hard slog because we did the opposite in a way to what most people would tell you to do, and that's to focus on one thing and do that incredibly well. And from listening to your podcast in the past, there's no shortage of founders who've said the same thing, like Conor from Glofox, their relentless focus on serving the gym market, on serving the fitness market. We were contrarian in that view because we were saying, well, we'd love to focus on one thing, but lots of people have focused on gift cards or lots of people have focused on online ordering. What we really want to do is to actually have a spread focus, which is dangerous, which is why it took us 7 or 8 years to get the platform into the position where it is today. But I think we're reaping the benefits of it now because, well, we survived for 8 years. We managed to grow the company organically based on customers who we sold to who had specialized needs. Like we have some big customers like Bannatyne gyms in the UK, and they use our software for pretty much everything. So they're a perfect use case. All the gift cards for all of their 100 gyms in the UK sold by us in store and online.
That's Duncan Bannatyne's gyms.
Yeah,
Did
exactly.
you deal directly with that ever so easygoing gentleman?
No, just the once. Duncan's an executive chairman, so he's a bit hands off. But we deal with their CFO there. Ken is a lovely guy to deal with, and their whole kind of technical team. But they were a perfect example for us because they started with gift cards and then they implemented mobile wallet. And now only recently they've implemented online ordering. So that is the strategy. Customers come to us when they have one specific need. Like right now, everybody's need is online ordering. In the past, their need was gift cards, also loyalty. And then once they get started with that one particular thing, which was their need, they then see what other stuff that we have available to them. And then the picture starts to become a bit clearer. It's like, oh, I can do all of this in this platform.
And we are warts and all on That Great Business Show. And you are going to tell me why you are not in Germany, particularly at the moment.
Yeah, like we've gotten lucky in some ways in terms of market expansion in that we were able to get into the Canadian and US markets by virtue of the fact that we had point of sale integrations. So merchants there could just download our application and get started. We had an attempt to go into the German market prior to the point of sale integrations being ready. So we didn't have that direct route to market. And we thought essentially, it just shows you that kind of you need to be very well prepared for each market that you go into. But we did it relatively haphazardly. I was the only person in the company who spoke German, so I had to deal with any support issues. And then there was way more support issues than we thought that there was going to be. There wasn't the point of sale integration, so we were getting everybody using the software with tablets and smartphones. So like the learning lesson was like it worked. There's an appetite in the German market for it. You just need to be very well prepared to go into the German market. But we are very attracted to the German market because it's the main market in Europe, but it's also the main market in Europe that's lagging in cashless payments. So they haven't, like as opposed to London where you might have over 90% of people, over 95% of people paying with contactless in London and surrounding areas. In Germany, it's still below 50% in a lot of areas.
They don't do credit card very much there.
No, Germans have an adversity to debt. Like I studied German in university and I lived in Austria for a while. So like the idea of buying something on credit in general in Germany is an adverse thought. They like to have good savings and they like to be very practical and risk averse in a lot of their measures. So cash has suited that, but the entire market, COVID as an accelerant, has changed that behavior. And over the past 3 or 4 years, that has started to change. And you have started to see the clock tick up a bit in terms of the percentage of Germans paying with cards and debit cards.
And I presume in the way that in the UK, say London is very different, say to the north of England, Berlin is probably a different Germany to southern Germany.
Yeah, well, they have a saying in German, it's like Berlin is nicht Deutschland. Like Berlin isn't Germany. Berlin's very different to Germany. Like a lot of people, you could go into like a startup incubator space in Berlin and everybody would be speaking English. That'd be very different in Munich, or in a smaller city state outside. Berlin is very different to the rest of Germany. There would be a higher percentage of contactless payments in Berlin than elsewhere, given the amount of immigrants from other countries that have come into Berlin. But in general, yeah, Germany is old school and cash is their old school method of payment.
Cash is König, as you might
Cash
say.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jamie, did you want to come in there?
No, it's just interesting to hear the different markets that you're in and the different markets, and the reasons why. I'd be curious to know, what like is on your pipeline in terms of various different markets and your kind of strategy for approaching them?
Sure. Do you mean markets in terms of geographical markets that you target?
Sorry. Yeah.
Cool.
Or actually, sorry, to be honest, you know, Patrick, if you were looking at, if you thought it was more interesting to tell us about the other verticals perhaps that you're looking at instead.
Yeah. Well, both are interesting. The verticals are probably more interesting. In terms of geographical markets, we go where the POS goes. So
POS being point of sale.
Point of sale, yeah. So huge thing for our business is to be integrated with modern point of sale systems where you can download Loylap as software, and then that software runs on the existing hardware that you have in store. So there's no need for any external hardware or any of that sort of crack or cluttering up your point of sale. So the main point of sale system we work with is one that's very common in Ireland now, but it wasn't when we started with it in 2014. It's the Clover point of sale system. So all of our technology is available as apps to download on that. And that system is primarily available in Ireland, the UK, the US, and Canada. Hence the correlation with our target markets. We have a route to market in those countries by virtue of the fact that anybody in those countries can download our applications and get started directly from their point of sale. In countries like Germany, we don't have those point of sale integrations yet. So people have to use Loylap software using a tablet or a smartphone, which isn't as seamless because then you have a double entry system where you're selling a gift card using a tablet, and then you also have to record that in your point of sale. So wherever we can, we want to be integrated as best as possible in the point of sale. From a vertical perspective, we have operated best and we have been most attractive in the high volume, low value area. So cafes, restaurants, bars have all been perfect. QSRs, quick serve restaurants as well, even more so than restaurants. So the type of place where you might go to get a sandwich on the go or grab your lunch, as opposed to a fancy restaurant where you may go once a year. So the reason for that is they're the businesses that are most likely to have a need for a loyalty and online ordering system. The functionality that we have is most suited to their business model. So the gift cards, loyalty, online ordering, and mobile payment, that covers essentially most of the functionality that your typical cafe, restaurant, bar, quick serve restaurant is going to want. The way that we want to get into different markets is by adding on functionality that we know is required in that particular market. So we have a platform, we have the entire system in place. So it's not like we have to build everything from scratch for each new market. We just have to add on a little bit. So for example, if we wanted to say go more into the gents hairdressing market, we would add on a little booking system. So repurposing some of the technology, add on a booking system. And now we could have a system whereby you could, rather than going and sitting down and waiting for your haircut, get your haircut at a certain slot. And there has been apps in the market already that have done things like that. But the way I see that is that a lot of companies have set up, but they're actually not companies, they're features. And if you're a feature, you're at risk of being copied or swallowed by a larger company that sees it bigger than just that feature. And that, like, if there was an app, I think there has been a few in several different countries for booking hairdressing, like, it's good, but
it's successful Irish one, Phorest, PH.
Well, we're well aware of Phorest, but Phorest are a good bit more advanced than that. Like Phorest do the whole shebang for health and beauty and booking, all of that sort of stuff. So we would never think that we're going to beat them in terms of that industry. They, like Glofox, have focused on gyms. They have focused on the beauty aspect and like booking a salon or mainly a female-focused approach. But where we would see it would be having an integration policy. I think, again, it was Conor O'Toole from Glofox on your podcast said that companies have to play nice, and we have the same opinion. Companies are going to integrate with each other. So we're never going to build a better booking platform than Phorest. But what we could do is go to Phorest and go, well, maybe our loyalty platform is superior to yours. So we have several customers who are the same, and we could integrate these.
Is that an offer to Phorest?
Yeah.
And an offer to Glofox?
Yeah, I'm just dropping messages everywhere here.
Good, because the other one that you definitely want to go get out there is you would love some money.
Like I said, it took us 8 years to get the product into the position where we have it today. And, again, contrarian to most, we were entirely engineering focused for 7 years for that reason. Like, we only hired our first dedicated salesperson 6 months ago, and then another person 3 months after her. So we finally found, by taking that risky strategy, it paid off, but we finally found a place now that if you are a cafe, restaurant, bar, we have a very, very good product market fit, as well as gyms, as well, like Bannatyne being a great use case. So we're now finally able to expand the sales team, and I'm able to kind of get myself out of product a bit more and get
not
myself
try to fix point of sales in Germany.
No, that was a nightmare. It was great fun. I thought it was going to be great crack for a while, and it was, like, speaking German to a bunch of customers. But then the calls just kept coming in. And we're like, we need to retreat.
We're going to run out of time, and you're not going to get your money, so you better put out a call for the cash.
Yeah, well, we're doing an investment round, and we're looking for 4 million euros. So, like, we're really looking to.
That's good.
Yeah, well, like, we have a very good base of recurring revenue already, enough to justify that. And we have the metrics in terms of our sales growth now and what each additional salesperson can do to the team. So, 3 years ago, if you were talking to us, it was still quite airy-fairy. And we knew what we were doing. We just weren't able to vocalize it quite as well as we can yet. I'm still probably not as good as I should be. But we have solidified it. We have a market that is perfect for it. And we also have the ideas for how we're going to enter several other markets. It's just about deciding which ones we should go for first.
So if anybody listening to the podcast wants to get involved in your business and give you 4 million quid at a valuation of...
Do you want the IBAN now?
Say 100 million. Where will they find you?
Where will they find me?
Yeah.
If they send an email to info@loylap.com, I'm sure it'll be
sent
sent on my way.
Anything to info because I never believe anybody's there.
We monitor, we have a chap who just, it's not his only job, but everything that comes into info, he just sends it whichever way it should go, or deletes it sometimes if appropriate.
But Patrick, I think, at Loylap, LOYLAP.com.
That'd get me directly.
I think that might be the better route if they're offering you 4 million quid or more. You will please come back to us when you, one, raise the cash, and secondly, when Stripe is about to pounce on you and buy you for some vast valuation. Will you do that?
Of course, you'll be the first to know, Conor.
Of course, thank you very much. Listen, Patrick Garry of Loylap, co-founder, thank you so much for joining us on That Great Business Show.
Thanks very much, Conor.
That Great Business Show is brought to you by defactoshave.com. De Facto Shave is the best shaving oil in the world for men and women. That is why they say it's the best anyone can get. Buy it online, defactoshave.com.
You're listening to That Great Business Show with Conor O'Toole and Jamie Heaslip. ThatGreatBusinessShow.com.
Our next guest I first met some years ago when she was just starting out her Peachy Lean business. Peachy Lean, you ask? Yep, think Spanx for the gym. She makes leggings and stuff like that. Now, since the start of COVID, it's been very good for business. But then sometimes real life can get in the way of a booming business. And that's what I really want to get at, is that people who are not in business, just to understand sometimes how bloody hard, I was going to use another word there, how bloody hard business can be. Sharon Keegan, you are very welcome to That Great Business Show. Let's just, first of all, talk about the business. What do you do? Where do you make it? Where did it all come from? Etc.
Thanks for having us, guys. I'm so happy to be here, first of all. So I met you kind of 2 years ago, and I was only starting up my little business, and I was after being made redundant from a previous role I was working in for 8 years. And I needed something to do. I was only after having a baby, and I was carrying a lot of extra weight. I was also diagnosed with postnatal depression, and I used fitness to pull me out of what was a really dark place. But it was while I was trying to kind of shed my pounds, my extra burden of weight, both physical and mental, I realised there was no real fitness wear for women of my size, like that would really support my curvy shape, maybe my new mum tum, my, added hips and my pelvis area. So I designed a product that really kind of acts like a shapewear and supports women in that area. So it was really designed for a postnatal woman, but it actually took off because most of the celebrities were wearing it, Vogue Williams and all these different cool people, and then it just went mainstream. So that's where it started, and I met you, and we kind of had a little chat. And actually, funny enough, when I left your studio, Conor, right, in 2018, I went offline to England to meet Mr. Some chef anyway, doesn't matter. I forget his name, but I found out I was pregnant that day, right? And ended up having a baby, number 2. 2? Yes.
Now, hang on, you better give a bit of context here. I had nothing to do with it.
No, it was nothing to do with you, oh my God. I hope not anyway, but no.
You hope not. Hang on a second. I was not there.
But no, look, we had lovely Bobby. He arrived in October 2018. So here I was, 2 babies in, unexpectedly on the second. Now, he's great and everything else. I love him. But 2 buzzing little boys and a business that was taken off. And I was running it literally from my kitchen table. Now, people say, I started a business from my kitchen table. I started the business. I really wanted it to do well, but I really wasn't ready for the explosion. And it was phenomenal. It was brilliant and great growth and everything else. But that all, having the 2 boys and trying to kind of spin all plates really kind of affected my mental health on the second guy as well. And I fell into a very dark place again with postnatal depression. So, that it's a hormonal deficiency, and it does pass after, about 9 months, whatever. And I kind of pulled myself again out of this with exercise in the gym, the whole lot. And that was, I came out of that really in November or December 2000, of the next year.
19.
So 19. Yeah. Even though I was still kind of managing the business and everything else. And and then I was starting to get back to myself, and everything was going great, and the business was really growing. Enterprise Ireland got involved. I'd won like CSF, 50 grand into the business.
CSF, Competitive Startup Fund.
That's correct, yeah. I'd taken part in like the Female High Flyers, and then won a couple of awards. We won the new Emerging Business Award from the SFA and Enterprise Ireland. And then Enterprise Ireland gave us 50 grand. I was absolutely delighted with myself. And then we got a few investors on board, and everything was going great.
And COVID was good for you as well?
Yeah. COVID, look, for a lot of people, I want to be very kind of very aware that, there's a lot of people that are struggling. And a lot of, especially around this time, especially females as well, 85% of us are taking the bare brunt of the childcare at the moment. And, a lot of us are trying to run businesses, and it's really, really difficult. But my particular product really suited, the stay-at-home mother, woman in general, that wanted that added bit of confidence, extra support. And, COVID calories were going on no matter what. So, these products are particularly good for that. And I think Peachy Lean in general is all about supporting that woman to love herself and her shape, no matter what size or shape she is. It's about firing the inner critic and allowing yourself to be kind to yourself and just to get yourself out the door, to feel your best self. So that was really coming from my place. And all was going great. We were growing at such a rapid rate. And then life comes and you get a phone call. Sorry now.
And I know this is going to be very tough.
Yeah. You get a phone call. Sorry.
That's all right. So I actually just want you to talk about this for a very specific reason. So I want people to understand how tough business can be.
Yeah, so it's that phone call that nobody wants to get. And so my brother 35 years of age, and he tragically was taken from us on March 25th of this year. And I was with him the day before, and he was a huge part of my life. We were best friends, and it was not COVID related. I just want to say that, because everyone will say, oh, was it COVID related? But we were in lockdown, and it was a really, really difficult time. Alan did struggle with that inner voice, same as me. We both did, and we were very, very close. And yeah, it was just such a horrendous situation. And I think having 2 children in lockdown with a business, a lot of responsibility. You know, I was thrown into this washing machine of grief, and you know, no funeral, no support, no people, no hugs. Jesus, I miss hugs. And yeah, it's been 9 months it's a 9-month washing machine cycle. That's the only way I can describe it. Some days where you're drowning in the grief, and some days you are spinning and having the best time ever, you know, because business is business and I love it, and I'm very passionate about what I do. And then there's some days where you're just still. And
when you're running your own business, as you do, and this happens, nobody can take over from you because you are the business.
Yeah, it was my whole ethos in Peachy Lean is support, because we provide support products. We design support products. Everything about it is the psychology and the support and the psychological, the way a woman thinks and the way she feels. And in my darkest moment, I needed support myself. It's just such a thread running through the whole business. But there was particular people that really stood up for me. And I ended up bringing them into the business because they really saved me and they saved my business. And it's so funny because I feel like I'm divinely led. And I'm not even religious or anything, but I'm led by the universe and my brother's energy. But he has led me to these incredible people.
Because you have been hiring.
Yes.
Tell the world who they are.
Oh, well, you know, the 2 women in particular came to me at this very, very dark period of my life, right? A lady called Fiona O'Carroll, who was gifted to me by Enterprise Ireland, and she was so good and we got on so well. I didn't want to let her go. But
was she a mentor?
She was my mentor. Yes, she mentored me for 10 weeks, and then she was managing director of Independent News and Media, and she also was the chief operations officer for Gifts Direct. And we just got on like a house on fire. Like, we used to just chat over Zoom. Like, we fell in love over Zoom. And then I just wouldn't let her go. I begged her to stay. And now she is our chief operations officer. And we just signed that just before Christmas. I'm very proud. Thank you so much. She is incredible. We call her the machine, actually. She's amazing. And then I also was gifted by Magical Universe this beautiful girl called Carol Mahan, who is the most incredible illustrator and textile designer. And this girl came to me literally for a part-time role to support her. She was running her own kind of illustration business. And again, we got on like a house on fire. And I feel that they were sent to me by this beautiful energy. Also, Mr. Dan Ryan, who...
Mr. Dan Ryan, very
Dan Ryan, we're like the Charlie's Angels.
Dan sounds like a gentleman.
Yeah, he is. Do you know Dan, Jamie? Because I tell you, he's a gas ticket. But I met him on the street with Mr. Louis Copeland. Believe it or not, I sent this up yesterday. But funny story, we were walking down Grafton Street. The 2 of these guys were chatting all things retail, and Dan is ex Brown Thomas, Selfridges and Primark, and as everyone knows who Mr. Louis Copeland is. But they gave me a book to read, and it was called Who Moved My Cheese? And it's an incredible book just about change and how to deal with change. And I don't think they ever realised how much in that particular day I needed to read that book. And it was that day, it was in the summer of 2020, that I haven't looked back. So I feel divinely led by my gorgeous brother who's with me every day. And I feel that he's given me the most incredible team. And in 2021, we are going to explode.
Because you're going to go wild internationally. You are selling online.
Yeah. So we sell in 23 countries. But most, like our growth has been exceptional this year. Like I think we grew year on year 215%, which is incredible. Like we're growing really, really fast. We can't keep up with the demand. We're really trying to push for finance now to just keep up with the stock levels. Like we just can't. It's supply and demand. But again, in COVID in particular, you know, we sell out every time. It's not a bad complaint, but I really wish I had more money for more stock, you know. And then that's why we're bringing in Dan. Dan was exceptional in kind of stock management and stuff like that. So it's really kind of learning from all these really great people. But we pitched last year for, I can't really say too much, but it was in front of major investors who have a massive presence in the UK and have a huge global reach. And we've done really well. And we're going through a process with them now at the moment, which is a legal process and we'll see how that goes. I'll tell you more on part 3.
And I think I know who you are talking about, but my lips are also sealed.
Yes.
But if you were funded, I'm just wondering about prior to that, are you having hassles trying to get stock finance from the banks and all, or?
The banks have been really good, to be honest. My AIB is my bank and they've been great. They've given me stock loans and also just like a couple of weeks ago, they gave me an overdraft to keep us going. And like we've thousands of units on the way. Like everyone's struggling at the moment, actually, in retail and e-commerce in general. But like just stock and
where are they coming
transport
from?
of stock.
Where do you
China.
come from? Where do you order from or manufacture from?
We at the moment, Jamie, we manufacture in China. And we wanted to manufacture in Portugal, and we were just about to do that just before COVID hit. So we were actually transferring all of our manufacturing to an amazing factory in Portugal who it was really ethical and sustainable, and they had all these solar panels around the factory. It was like the dream factory. And then it hit in Portugal and everything shut down. So that particular factory shut down altogether. So they don't even trade anymore. So we stuck with the manufacturer we're using in China, and we are looking for, to bring it closer to home. But again, with COVID, it's just all so up in the air. And
to fund it, you are, let's say that this big UK thing doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. Do you need funds from somebody else, or have you got a backup plan?
So we're trying to raise 250,000 now to match fund with the HPSU investment. So
this is separate now to the other issue over in the UK. All right.
Yes, yeah. So at the moment we're raising pre-seed, which is basically 250,000 with private investors to match fund, and Enterprise Ireland will match fund that with another 250,000. We have really good cash flow sales, and the cash is good in the business. It's just to grow at the rate that we want to grow. That kind of hockey stick growth that we could achieve actually next year or maybe into 2023. But just trying to raise that capital at the moment.
And I presume you're looking what is called wise money, people who know what they're talking about. Yeah. But I'm not aware, because I'm not aware, I actually just do not know what funding is like for what we will call the rag trade. Are there specialist investors into the rag trade in Ireland, or where do you go looking? Yeah,
there's a lot of kind of European investors. They would invest in VCs that would invest in textile type companies.
But would they go as low as 250,000? I mean, that is
no, that's
small.
more private kind of angel investors or whatever. And we have had people reach out to us, but they have to be I know this is going to sound terrible to say it, but I am going to say it. I'm a people person, and okay, everyone's background is phenomenal, but I have to be able to sit on a board with somebody and really speak about family and values, and it's for me that's everything. It's everything about Peachy Lean. It's about it's mental health. Do you know what I mean? And I certainly don't want to be stressed out in my own business. So we will pick wisely. Because we're doing well. We don't have to, we're not really begging for money at the moment. I know that sounds very big-headed. It's not. It's just, we will choose wisely and hope that, we will all be happy. It'll be a board full of happy faces.
Now, call me Mr. Worry Bean. Can you do something and continue to do it that the others, be they Nike or Lululemon, see the way I was able to bring those in?
Yes.
That they could not replicate?
No, look, I think this is, I suppose, look, in Ireland today, there's hundreds of companies doing fitness wear. Hundreds. I only had this conversation yesterday, actually, with a friend of mine who designs baby wear. And I was telling her, you have to tell your story. Your story's phenomenal. Like, it's all about your story, because her story is phenomenal. Maybe she'll come on the show with you, Conor.
Yes, please.
It's the Stork Box. She's phenomenal, Sophie.
Stork Box, you are invited.
She's in. But she was just saying, there's so many people doing it. And I was like, if I was to worry about every single person that brings out a pair of leggings in the next couple of weeks or next month or whatever, I wouldn't be in business. It's not about that for me. It's about I'm providing products that with added support. So there's a lot of innovation in what we're doing. The future portfolio of products also has a little bit more innovation than others. Can Nike do it tomorrow? Yes, they can. Can Lulu do it tomorrow? Yes, they can. But they don't have me. They don't have my story. They don't have my background, my struggle. And I'm all about the struggle. I'm about the inner critic. I'm about people accepting themselves for who they are. I'm about the everyday hero. We support the everyday, everybody, and I'm speaking to the customer, actually, that the Lulu and the Nike have left out.
What about the men? You're not doing anything for men. You made a pair of leggings for me a long time ago with Jamie, did you ever see me in a pair of Lycra leggings with a unicorn on them?
I can't say I have, or I'd want to see that, to be honest. But I am interested to hear. Are you going to go after the male market?
Yeah. So thanks for asking that, Jamie. At the moment, yes is the answer, the full answer. But it's just finance. It's all down to finance and planning. We can make a huge impact with what we're doing, both in the female and male space, because it is about the mental health side of things. And now more so than ever with the loss of my brother and the whole thread that goes through that as well. So yes, in full we are, but we have to start somewhere, and we're doing really well with the female products at the moment. We will build on that, and then when we get the finance in, we will definitely go after the male market as well.
Any chance that you can have them manufactured in Ireland? There probably isn't anybody doing that. No, it's an awful pity, isn't it?
It's a dream. Like it's a dream. It's
not happening.
It just wouldn't. If we could do it, happy days. There'd be absolutely. We'd all do it. Every one of us that are in this business would. But it's just the cost is just not there. It's not the
size and technology and tech and. What can your team? Something else before. You're now Team GBS. What can Team GBS do for you besides buying your product? Buying product online, or are they in shops?
No, we don't. We're just direct consumer brand, e-commerce brand that basically, we just sell online, and we're doing really well with that model. So we're going to stick with that. I think this year has shown us all that this is the way forward. So we're launching a couple of new products into next year. We had the support leggings that do really well, the bras, and we have a new innovation for particularly a sensitive product with women. That will help with the pelvic floor area. So we'll be helping with that. We're doing some really cool things with our new branding, and we're featuring on Ireland AM and a few different programs in the next couple of weeks.
And on that great business show.
Oh,
I forgot about that one.
I'm so excited. It's just it's such full circle to come back, actually, because when I met you first, I was such a new, buzzing bee into business. I didn't really know a lot, but I was so super excited for life, and to come full circle, and now we're really seriously looking for investment and really pushing forward. It's just great.
And you've got this big team of, they're heavy hitters.
They're heavy hitters.
I'm not saying it's not a massive team, but for a small business, you've got a nice team.
Yes, it's a super team. I always say it takes the team to make the dream. So we're going to do it next year.
You still haven't answered. What can Team GBS do for you?
So,
ask, as they say.
So, what did I write down now?
You did write down,
I did. So I really want to just push, I suppose, the product and the branding, and just we have a 25% sale on this month. So if anyone wants to come on and have a look, and really, I suppose, just to call out to anyone in the financial space looking to join an exceptional team that are going to explode in the next couple of years. We already have proof of that and track record there. So, yeah, if you're interested to join us, please get in touch.
Well, we will put that call out on all our social media. You are phenomenal on social media. You never stop, do you?
No, I don't.
Which is again how you built your business.
Yeah.
We will put it out on our social media. We are particularly strong on LinkedIn. We've got a very, very strong company page there that everybody listening should follow. And if we can find funding for you, we will put them in touch with Sharon Keegan, CEO, founder, chief bottle washer, everything at Peachy Lean. .com, isn't it?
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Sharon Keegan, thank you so much for joining us on That Great Business Show.
Jamie,
yeah,
I had a jersey here for you to sign. I hope you can sign it for me. I have a guy at home that gave me the thesis on Jamie Heaslip just before I came in here.
It's the first time we've done it where I've not been there, and it's quite difficult, obviously, to get in the mix.
But if Sharon gives it to me, I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
We'll get it back to Sharon.
Conor only lives down the road from me, so...
I'll see you again. He gave me the full rundown on your whole sporting career before I came in, so I said I'd bring in the jersey.
Okay. Great. Listen, Sharon Keegan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
And that is it from thatgreatbusinessshow.com. Thank you so much for listening to episode 16. As usual, our huge thanks to our sound engineers here at the Dublin South FM podcast studios in Dundrum, Dublin. Alison O'Dwyer and Peter Rice will make us sound half human when we are finished here in studio. And a very big thank you to our ace scout, that is Eamon Sayers. He's the CEO at the Guinness Enterprise Centre who found us, who are our 4 interviewees today. So thank you very much to Eamon Sayers. And if you want your business, or you know of a business that should be on That Great Business Show, go to the website, thatgreatbusinessshow.com, press the button that says share your story, and all will be revealed. Simple as that. Thank you finally, as usual, to our sponsors, defactoshave.com. Without them, we would not be here. Please support them. They support us. defactoshave.com.